Hey, and welcome to the Mind Walker Method. I'm your host, Tony Wake. And before we get into this week's episode, why don't you go and click below that subscribe button so that you're subscribed to the channel. And also hit that little bell icon so that you are reminded whenever new episodes come your way. So when we talk about getting into the flow of things, so many times we hear about getting into the flow and things are just flowing our way. I'm sure you've had days in your life when everything just goes perfectly. It's like the whole day has been pre-planned and every action that you take, every step of that day, everything just falls perfectly into place. Am I right? We've all had days like that. We also have days where it seems like, you know what, I just need to get back into bed because the whole day is just one big disaster, right? One thing keeps going wrong after the other, and it's just one of those moments of, I want to get back into bed and just call it a day. Maybe if I wake up again, everything's going to be better. But those days when everything just flows, when it feels like everything is pre-planned, everything is going according to plan, that's when we are in the zone, right? We are in flow. Things just flow naturally. There's no resistance. There's no backing out of something. There's no pushing against anything. It's like we're just in the flow and things are flowing. Now with that, before we go further into flow and before we touch more on that concept, there's also a concept that a lot of people are talking about, especially lately, of living in the now, being in the moment, right? What is happening in the moment? If you live in the now, you're not looking to the future, you're not looking to the past, you're living in the moment. Well, the two aren't necessarily mutually exclusive of one another. Because if you're living in the moment, if you're living in the now, in the present, okay, the pre-sent. In other words, before something gets sent somewhere, before you get there, you pre-sent it. You design it, you structure something around it, you pre-sent it. So in the present, the pre-sent, you are basically planning on an unconscious level how your day is going to flow, how things are going to structure each other so that you are in that flow of things. Now, speaking of flow and being in the pre-sent, we have the ability to future pace occurrences. Now, future pacing is the simple fact of imagining what things would be like before they even occur. It's like mentally rehearsing something before you're even there. Like you're presupposing that this is the way things are going to be. And because you're presupposing it, the mind cannot tell the difference between what is real and what is imagined. So according to the mind, that is the way things are. If you future pace something and you're behaving and acting and imagining things as if they are already as such, then your body and your mind begin to align in order to create whatever it is that you are presupposing, whatever it is that you are creating in your mind, the future pacing that you're doing. Now, what does all of this have to do with the present, Tony? What does all of this have to do with the current situation and living in the now and being in flow and all of those type of mental structures and metaphysical talk that so many of us hear on so many different platforms? Well, when you're living in the now, when you're living in the present, you are creating your future based on what you're doing in the moment. You're not looking to the future and trying to build the future. You're not looking into the past and trying to change things of the past. You're living in the moment. And the future is created by what you do in the present, in the current moment of experience. Now, it's interesting that the present, before you even get there, and the now and the current creates flow, doesn't it? Because if you are in the current moment, you are in a powerful position where you are actually creating the flow necessary, and by future pacing, your mind is already pre-planning and pre-creating where you are heading towards. So knowing where you're heading towards, your motivation, right? Your motive motivation? What is your motive? What is your intent? Where are you going? Because if you don't know where you're going, then how do you know when you've arrived there, right? So if you know what your motive is, if you know where you're heading towards, and you're already mentally structuring and creating that outcome, you're creating the thing towards which you're heading. Now in the current moment, in the present, you are pre-sending it. You're designing what it is that you want to have as an outcome. And then by living in the now, living in the moment, living in the current, you are creating the flow within yourself and within your behavior and within your thinking processes that sets out the flow, the current for you that you step into, and then it takes you towards where you want to go. Now, how do we do that? How do we not so much think of the future or remember the past, but think in the current moment? Well, a simple technique that I teach my students when they sign up, especially for the Mindwalker Academy at mindwalker.co.za, and also the Mindwalker group on Facebook, if you want to go there, it's called the Mindwalker Tribe. What I teach the students there is that when you are facing something in the present moment that you are uncomfortable with, that you feel is not within your flow, that doesn't resonate with you, the first thing that you do is you focus on your breathing. You detach yourself from the experience and you focus within. You focus on your breathing. How am I breathing? Where am I breathing? Am I breathing in my chest? Am I breathing in my stomach? Am I having shallow breaths? Am I having deep, relaxing breaths? Focus on your breathing. Now, what does breathing have to do with living in the moment, you may ask? Well, the moment you focus on your breathing, you are consciously taking control of an unconscious behavior. Because none of us are actively thinking of our breathing, right? Unless you are some yogi or some yoga instructor, or you're very adept at doing meditation, very few people focus on their breathing. It's a natural, unconscious occurring process. So the moment you start focusing on your breathing, you're taking an unconscious process, you're bringing it into your conscious awareness, and you're taking control of it. So try it right now. Focus on your breathing. Notice where you are breathing. Are you breathing in your chest, up here, or are you breathing in your stomach, down there? Now what I want you to do is, regardless of where you're breathing, I want you to focus on your stomach. Breathe in deep and expand your stomach as you're breathing all the way down into there. And hold it for a few seconds and then breathe all the way out. And then do 3 of those breaths. In through the nose, all the way down into the stomach. Hold it for a moment. And then you breathe all the way out. And one more time. And all the way out. Now, by doing that, you might have noticed how your whole physicality, your whole physiology started relaxing more, because you took that unconscious process and you made it a conscious, active, taking control of it within your conscious awareness. Now, the moment you make something conscious, the moment you take something that's happening automatically and you make it conscious, now you are taking control of it. Now you're forcing it into the moment. And when you're forcing it into the moment, it brings your awareness into the moment. While you were breathing, you weren't thinking of the future. You weren't thinking of the past. You were thinking in the moment. So you're bringing yourself into the moment. And by bringing yourself into the moment, you started feeling that relaxation. You started feeling that calmness. Your thoughts started calming down, and you stopped the self-talk in the back of your mind, and you noticed that as you started breathing deeply and more relaxed and more calm, you brought yourself into the moment. Now, being in the moment is the perfect place and the perfect opportunity to then gather your thoughts and think to yourself, okay, now that I'm in the moment, what is it that I want? How would it look like? What would it smell like? What would it sound like? What would it feel like? What would it taste like even if I get exactly what it is that I want to manifest, that I want to create? Because if I look at what I want and I start mentally rehearsing and creating it, how would I feel once I have it? What would I be thinking? What would I be saying to myself? What would I be looking at? What would I be envisioning in my mind? What would I be focusing on? How would I be speaking to myself and others? What would it feel like physically? Would I be holding something in my hands? What type of clothing would I be wearing? What would my experience be in that moment once I have manifested what it is that I want? And now that your mind is there, you know what it is that you are looking for. You've mentally rehearsed and created it. Now bring yourself back into the present. Take 3 deep, slow breaths. And as you do that, now that you know where you're going, ask yourself, what is one thing that I can do right now that can get me moving towards that outcome that I want? Because this is the pre-sent. Before I sent it into the future, I'm predetermining it. I'm pre-creating it right now. And by pre-creating it, by being in the now, I'm creating the current. And in the current, if I know where I'm going, I can step into the current and I can create the flow that takes me towards where I want to go. So that is a quick tip that you can start using to bring your mind from all the scattered experiences that there are from the past and the future and all of the self-talk and the overwhelming emotions and stimulation that you have. Bring yourself into the now, and by bringing yourself into the now, into the present, into the current, you are taking control. You are taking the thoughts that are unconscious into your conscious thinking, creating what you want, creating the flow so that it takes you towards where you want to go. Now, in future episodes, we'll look at the path of least resistance and what resistance means and how to bypass resistance and what the feedback of resistance is. But that's in future episodes. So be sure that you subscribe to this channel if you're listening on Spotify or one of the other podcast platforms that there are. Be sure to subscribe and follow us there as well. Join the Mindwalker Tribe on Facebook and on Instagram and under the handle at Mindwalker Tribe. And if you want to follow me, Tony Wake, look for my social handle on all my platforms are at the Tony Wake. Thank you so much. Be sure to stay tuned for future episodes. Be blessed, stay strong, and as always, be true to you.